Good evening. I need to share this with you. The greatest day of my life was the day that I finally built my own house. You know, this house was an architectural masterpiece. It had everything I wanted exactly where I wanted it. And more than that, it cost a fortune to build. It cost me 20 billion naira to build this house. Everybody adored my house. A whole edition of Ovation magazine was devoted to celebrating my house. Tourists came just to take photographs of my house. Nollywood film directors featured it in their movies. Everybody, from presidents to senators to business tycoons, readily came for my seasonal parties in this wonderful, wonderful house that I had built. But one day, I was surprised to discover that a roof in the den was leaking. What is the meaning of this? When I told my father about it, he laughed at me. He said, Femi, what do you really know about building a house? You have little or no experience in these matters. I said, how can you say that? How can you say that? I've built a house that is by all accounts the best house there is in Lagos. So he said, well, so how come the roof is leaking? He had a simple solution. He said, I will send you my structural engineer. He will identify the faults and suggest simple ways to rectify it. Well, a few days later, the man in question came in to inspect my house. When I showed him the problem in the den, he smiled knowingly and immediately identified where the leak was coming from. I couldn't help but seek the approval of such an expert. So I said to him, apart from these minor details, I'm sure you will admit that this house is a magnificent house. The engineer seemed a little amused by my statement. I take it, he replied, that you haven't yet noticed the faults in the kitchen. The kitchen? What kitchen? What fault could there be in the kitchen? Everything in the kitchen was well appointed and custom made. I don't mind saying so myself. The kitchen was quite simply a work of art. The engineer was not inclined to argue with me. He took me to the kitchen, and one by one, he showed me all kinds of structural defects that I had not even noticed before in my fantastic kitchen. I was crestfallen. But I decided to put a bold face on it. I said, well, thank God you're here, right? We can fix it, right? I was looking for some reassurance, some word of comfort from this gentleman. But I was more than taken aback by his response, because he simply asked me and said, and then what do you propose to do about the study? I shouted, the study? What study? Suddenly, I took another look at this mild-mannered man. He didn't seem to me so mild-mannered anymore. It was becoming clear to me that this man was up to no good. Why did I even allow this so-called structural engineer to come into my house? It was time to show him the door. Yes, I knew there were some things wrong with them. I noticed them myself and brought them to his attention. I'm even prepared to admit that some things were wrong in the kitchen. I never argued with him when he showed them to me, but there is no way he or anybody else is going to convince me that anything is wrong with the study. I personally designed that room myself. I supervised its construction to the very last detail. If anything were wrong with the study, I would have been the first to know. But in a characteristically no-nonsense manner, the engineer walked me into the study. Again, he systematically showed me all the things that were wrong with the room. I couldn't believe it. There were more things wrong in my favorite study than I had been in both the den and the kitchen combined. I was devastated. It seemed my whole world suddenly came crashing down. In desperation, I turned to this mild-mannered engineer. What can we do? I pleaded. We can fix it, can't we? Please, please, please tell me the truth. The engineer, he looked at me with great intensity. Do you really want to know? He asked me. Yes, I said. Resigned to my fate, but now afraid to look him in the eye. What we need to do, said the engineer, is knock the entire house down and put up a completely new building. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Knock the house down? This house cost 1 billion of 20 billion naira to build. My nemesis was completely unimpressed. He said to me, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Psalm 127, verse 1. Thank you very much. God bless you. As you continue to listen to my broadcasts or watch on YouTube and subscribe. Good night.